Good morning, ladies. Good morning, and welcome to our now second pre-recorded class for Form 2 drama. I just recorded this entire class and it did not save. I talked for about 40 something minutes and it did not save. So now I am tired and hungry and we're going at it again. Hopefully it saves. I'm recording it on Zoom and here we go. So, you all would have had some homework for me. You are going to correct your own homework because there's a lot of you. You are going to correct it yourself using the presentation that I'm going to be giving you today. So you had to look at two festivals that are celebrated by the indigenous people, the first peoples of Trinidad and Tobago, the first people's descendants. So I'm hoping that you would have found out some things about what we're going to talk about today. And in the presentation, you're going to use that to correct your work and make sure that everything you had was spot on. And, just emphasizing the importance of what we're doing here. You might be studying, why are we doing this in drama, boy? How come we're doing festivals and things? Drama is social studies, is history. And the answer is yes, all of the above. So it's on the syllabus for a reason. It's very important for us to get to know the cultural background of our country. A lot of being a theater person or being a drama person is knowing about the country that you live in and the different things that people celebrate and the different ways that we perform things. Yep. So let's get right into it. Today we're going to be looking at two of them. And of course, you know the drill. At some point in time during the class, I'm going to put up the magic word that you're going to put into the Google Forms document to be able to register as being present for this class, because we know why we can't do it live. So look out for the magic word, pay attention, take notes, and we're gonna get into it. Let's go one time. So usual thing, we're going to be who, what, where, when, how, and why. Not in this order though, but that's how we are looking at exploring our festivals, looking at the who, what, where, when, how, and why. So firstly, we're going to look at what is the Santa Rosa Festival. I'm hoping that some of us would have found this out in our homework. So the Santa Rosa Festival, if we look at the name, Santa Rosa is Spanish for Saint Rose of Lima. So anybody who is in the Blue House, as I was when I went to HFC, I was in the Blue House. I was in St. Rose of Lima. Anybody who's in the Blue House should know this. So Lima being Lima, I think it's Lima, being a place in Peru, which is in South America. So she was actually the first saint from the New World. So the New World being like the Caribbean and Latin America, to be canonized. She was the first person from this side of the world to be considered a saint. And of course, Peru is a Spanish-speaking place. I would like to believe so. So we know in the Roman Catholic practice, in the Roman Catholic faith, all of the saints have their different feast days. And this is just one of them. So let's just talk a little bit. So the festival, it's an annual celebration of Saint Rose of Lima. Before we get into that, let's just talk a little bit of Saint Rose of Lima, just briefly about her life story. They called her Rose because apparently she was very beautiful. That was not originally her name, but people found that she was so beautiful that she got the nickname Rose. And then when she did her confirmation, she took it on as her actual name. So the thing about Saint Rose of Lima was that at a very young age, even being conscious of being so beautiful, yikes, she decided that she wanted to be a nun and that she was going to dedicate her whole life to God. So she used, and her parents didn't quite agree with it because they're like, young, beautiful girl like you, go get married, go do something with yourself, go, so go plant or something. And she's like, no, I'm going to dedicate my whole life to God. So she used to be constantly praying, constantly fasting, doing penance. Some of the things were, basically torturing herself. So one very important story about Rosa of Lima. So when she was getting older, some men noticed that she was good looking. So they were trying to, get her to be their wife and go to her parents and things like that. And in trying to ward off that, because she was so focused on just being about God, she scarred her face. Basically, she scratched her face and then put pepper in it to make it burn, to make it blister. And then she cut her hair short, and she tried to do a lot of things so that people would not find her as beautiful and she could really focus on her main thing of God. And yeah, so her parents were very much against it, because they wanted her to marry, because that's what girls did in them times. They just married it, and that's it. But she kept to herself. She prayed constantly. She fasted. Now, back in these days, it was a big thing for people not to eat meat. She decided that she was not eating meat, and people were like, "What? Are you crazy?" So yeah, that's the story of Saint Rose of Lima. She died quite young, quite like a lot of the saints, but people respect her for being this ultra holy figure for Roman Catholics. Now, how it ends up in Trinidad is really interesting. Actually, she is believed to have appeared to a group of Caribs, who it's the incorrect term, but for our purposes, we're going to call them Caribs. Some of the indigenous people. We're talking about Amerindians here, a lot of different words here, in Trinidad. So she was believed to have appeared to them in the area that the feast is now celebrated. And so people thought, it's something special. We should dedicate this space to St. Rose of Lima. And this festival, Santa Rosa Festival, and it is in Spanish because we got our Roman Catholic tradition in Trinidad from the Spanish, not Venezuelans. We're talking about Spanish people from Spain when they came here during the colonial era. So that's why it's in Spanish. Yeah. Santa Rosa Festival, I can't roll my tongue, is one of the biggest events that happens in the town of Arima. Moving along, we're going to talk about when. When does it happen? This is something that I would hope you would have found out in the process of doing your homework as well. So it is launched at the beginning of August, and then the festival itself is on the 23rd of August, which is the feast day of St. Rose of Lima. That's the day that she died. So the main celebrations, the processions and everything we're going to talk about happen on the 23rd of August every year. One thing to recognize is that even though it's very closely linked to the indigenous people, this is completely separate. Oh gosh, this is completely separate from First Peoples Heritage Week, which is another celebration that is held in October. So this is separate from that, but a lot of the activities are quite similar. It was actually a few weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, First People's Heritage, not Santa Rosa. Right, so we are talking about where, and where is actually really important for this. It's very interesting. You may have heard me mention it very briefly, but it's celebrated in Arima, which is in the east of Trinidad. Some of us might have friends and family from Arima. Some of us may go to Arima often. Some of us may have never been to Arima. I find it far. Anyway, so why it's interesting is that Arima has a very strong history of Amerindian heritage. And when we talk about Amerindians, again, we're talking about the First Peoples. So Arima actually means water in the one of the Amerindian languages. I'm not sure which one, but it does. So Arima itself, when the Spanish people first came to Trinidad and they sent priests across because they heard that there were people living here already, and they said, we have to go and teach them to be Christian. So they sent some priests, some Capuchin priests. That's the type of brotherhood that they belong to. And one of the places that they came to was Arima. They set up a church and a mission in the town. Now, before that, or during or after that, there were Amerindians who lived in Arima, particularly the Napoyo tribe. So just how we think we have Caribs and Arawaks, who we actually call Tainos and Kalinagos, there's the Napoyo people. That's another group of Amerindians. And some of them did live in Arima. Very interestingly, there's one guy in particular whose name was Hyarima, Hyarima, and maybe should I put that in your slide? But he used to actively fight down the Spanish colonizers. He used to give them a real hard time, real harass them and thing. And he used to live in Arima. His name is Hyarima. Yeah, not yeah. Okay, anyway, you don't know what I mean. So actually, interestingly, back in the 1780s, which was a long time ago, the governor at the time, who was Jose Maria Chacon, removed the Amerindians from Aruca and Tacarigua, which are bordering Arima, and he put them in Arima so that he could give the good land in Aruca and Tacarigua to the French people who he invited. So he put them out and he put them in Arima, and hence there's a very strong Amerindian heritage in Arima, which is where Santa Rosa is. So, we've been talking about this. Well, I've been talking about it, but we're just going to go a little bit deeper into who celebrates the Santa Rosa Festival. So, it's actually a mix between Roman Catholics and the descendants of the first people. There's a group of people called the Santa Rosa Caribs, or the Santa Rosa First People, who are basically people whose parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents would have been Amerindians or Caribs. And they have a group, a support group, more or less. And the ones who live in Arima try to adhere to the Amerindian style of living. So they eat a lot of cassava, they plant what they eat and eat what they plant. They practice Amerindian spirituality, all the works. So these are the people who are mainly in charge of planning the Santa Rosa Festival. Now, there are indigenous groups all over the country, but this is probably the most organized one. And it is organized by the Carib Queen. So the people in this picture, they're not just anybody. This lady on the right-hand side is the previous Carib Queen. Her name is Jennifer Casa, but she passed away 2 years ago. But this is a role that is assigned to a woman in the community, an elder woman who is charged with planning the festival and all that jazz. And she also works alongside the chief, who's a man, the Carib chief, who does different things like public relations and stuff like that. So now this is the previous one, but now we have a new one. Her name is Nona Aquan, and she's the current Carib queen for the Santa Rosa people. She's very spunky. And we're seeing how women have a very important role here. Where the woman is an elder woman who takes charge of the entire community in the context of the Santa Rosa Festival. So this is the current Carib queen, Miss Nona Aquan. And then this is the current chief of the Santa Rosa peoples, Mr. Chief Ricardo Barat Hernandez. And he is the guy who gave me a lot of the information that I'm telling you in the PowerPoint today. So that's a picture of him on the right-hand side next to Miss Nona Aquan as well. Going on to talk about how. This is a big topic. How is it celebrated? We know who, we know where it is, we know when it is. Now we want to know how it's celebrated. And I hope that you would have covered this in your homework as well. So to launch the festival at the 1st of August, they launch it, they bring it in with a bang, and they launch a cannon. Well, back in the days when we had cannons that used to work, they used to launch a cannon out of Calvary Hill, well, on Calvary Hill in Arima, obviously. But nowadays, they just use explosives to bring it in with a bang. So they launch and they say, boom, festival time start. So as I mentioned before, it goes on for it's really celebrated the entire month, but the particular commemoration is on the 23rd. I think it's 23rd. I think that's what I said. Right. So um, one of the things that they practice is dressing the church, which is where they decorate the church and decorate the canopy, which we'll talk about in a second as well. And it starts off with a mass that they hold at the church. And it's very interesting. It's not like an ordinary mass because you have the Roman Catholic things going on in the mass, and you also have the first peoples coming to do things like smoke ceremonies and stuff inside the church as well. So you have both the Roman Catholics and the Amerindian people coming together to have their religious practices in one space. And you'll notice from the pictures as well that some of the people aren't wearing ordinary clothes. These would be people from the community, from the Santa Rosa Carib community, or just people who are friends or who have Amerindian heritage. And they'll wear the traditional clothes of the first peoples. So after the mass, they will take the statue. This is the actual statue in the picture here, which is a little bit confusing to me because it's supposed to be Rosa of Lima, but she's holding a baby who I assume is Jesus. I ain't too sure about that, but yeah. So they take the statue out of the church, they carry it through the streets on a vehicle, and they sing and they pray, celebrate. It's a festival. So the canopy you're seeing around her there is decorated with roses, Saint Rose, Santa Rosa, and the canopy represents her tomb. And this is part of what's in dressing the church, is making the canopy look nice and pretty. And it doesn't stop there. It's a whole day thing. It's a day of activities. We have parang. Quite interestingly, parang is very closely related with the Spanish and Amerindian cultures. So they have a lot of parang, even though it's in August. Music, they'll have craft stalls where people will be selling different things, just getting together and, doing things that people used to do before we had a pandemic and celebrating the festival. I'm just going to show you some photos here. So you'll see the mix between the Roman Catholic things happening. So you see her on the truck there, the canopy. Oopsie, yeah. And you see people, the pink and red are the main colors, of course, because roses. And people walk through the streets with the statue. I think it's really interesting to observe the use of smoke by the first peoples as opposed to the use of smoke by the Amerindians. A very important thing, actually, I'll talk about that in the next slide so you could see another picture. I love this picture in the middle, I love it. The smoke ceremony is a very important thing for the first peoples because they believe that smoke is a way of communicating with the higher realm, with the gods and things like that. All religions, I would like to believe, use smoke in different ways. Just as you saw, they have the incense, the Catholic Church. There's a special smoke ceremony. Take note of these containers there on the ground. They're gonna come, and you need to know about it in a second. But yes, they also have a water ceremony. The indigenous people have a water ceremony. I don't know very much about it, but that's another part of this, of how they celebrate the festival. And so now we know how it goes. We might want to know why. Why? Why would you celebrate this thing that has been, oh, look at it. Why would you celebrate this thing that has been happening for so many years? And of course, it's because we want to preserve, meaning to save, to hold on to these very precious cultures of the first peoples. As their name very rightly said, they've been here. They were here before Trinidad was Trinidad. They were here doing their thing. And then due to colonization, when the Spanish people came and killed a very large percentage of them, a lot of their culture was wiped away as well. And it's a miracle that they were able to hold on to so much. And we want to be able to hold on to that and, you know, get to learn more about the people who came before us and how they used to live. And, you know, and so, of course, the Santa Rosa people themselves, they practice these things on a regular, but they want to share it with the community so people like me and you could learn about the Amerindian way of life and their different sacred practices and things like that. And I really didn't mean to type harmony with a capital H here, but it's just a force of habit. You know, it's a beautiful space where you bring two different groups of people with somewhat different backgrounds into the same space. And it's very interesting, of course, because the Spanish people and the Roman Catholics would have been responsible for killing most of the Amerindian people by forcing their religion on them. So when we see them come together now in this space where they can coexist in this contemporary space, it's really a beautiful thing to observe. And I think we could all take a page out of this book, you know, instead of creating so many divisions and so much hatred and animosity between people of different backgrounds and religions. We see how the similarities and the love for the earth and for God and God's could come together in one space like this. So remember, it's important because it's important. Culture is cool. It's important to hold on to these things. So I told you about the calabash. That's the word for oopsie. That's the word for today. You're going to put that in Google Forms to let me know that you paid attention to the whole class today. Yep, that's it. Calabash. Spell it right. It's a little bowl. It comes from a seed from a tree. You dry out the seed and crack it open and all kind of thing. Cut it in half, and you have this bowl called a calabash. Calabash. That's the word of the day. The word of the day is calabash. And that's what you're going to put into Google Forms to let me know that you paid attention to class today. So we are going to talk about another festival now. We finished talking about Santa Rosa. We're going to compare it now a little bit to La Divina Pastora. Well, it's a nice Spanish accent there. I can't roll my tongue. But La Divina Pastora, I suppose quite a lot of you will know about this. And anything that you knew about it, if you knew about it, if you didn't know about it, if you're interested, if you go to that church, let me know in comments. Or let us know. Share what you know about La Divina Pastora. So we're doing it the same way. Who, what, where, when, how, and why. Not in this order, but we're going to look a little bit at La Divina Pastora, which is similar, but not the same to Santa Rosa Festival. So, what is it? Again, we are looking at the name and it's in Spanish. So, but La Divina Pastora means the divine shepherdess. She is one of the representations of the Virgin Mary. So we know we have different representations of the Virgin Mary. We have seat of wisdom, among others. I'm very tired. I can't remember right now. But yeah, so La Divina Pastora meaning the divine shepherdess, shepherdess being female shepherd. You see she has a staff across her chest. And she's one of the representations of the Virgin Mary. Now, there's a statue in the church of her. I think this is it. I think this is the right statue. But La Divina Pastora exists in other parts of the world, particularly in Venezuela. There's one town in particular that she's the patron saint of that place. So they also have a celebration similar to this. Yeah. So there are many stories about how this statue got here in the first place. One of them is that it floated all the way from Venezuela. So it was originally in Venezuela and it just floated across to Trinidad and somebody found it on the beach, which is, of course, a miracle. There's another story by a priest who said that the statue saved his life once. There's another story that says that some Spaniards from Spain, not from Venezuela, were in the forest in Siparia, and they found it there. And then they carried it to a church, left it at the church. When they went back to the church, it wasn't there. But when they went back to the spot where they found it initially, the statue had magically ended up back there. So that's one story. Another story is that the Warao people, it's a word we'll encounter a little bit later again. These are the indigenous peoples, some of the indigenous peoples of Venezuela. It said that another tribe, remember we spoke about the Napoyo being one tribe, so the Warao is a tribe that's native to Venezuela. There's a story that another tribe was attacking them and they had to flee, they had to run, and they picked up the statue and they came to Trinidad and brought it here. And then I guess the most boring of these stories is just that some Capuchin priests, who were the priests who first came to set up Roman Catholicism in Trinidad, they just brought it with them. That's one of the stories as well. So the festival itself is a commemoration of La Divina Pastora, who is actually thought by other faiths, as in non-Catholic people, to also be one of their deities. So Madonna is another word for Mary, or for a statue of Mary. The Hindu people, some Hindus, not all Hindus, it's a very specific set of people from the Hindu faith, believe that it's a representation of a goddess named Kali, who is not dark, but she's actually black. She's a black goddess. When I say black, I don't mean of African descent. I mean her skin is actually black. And some Hindu people call her the Madonna Murti. So Murti is a Hindu word for statues, representations of the different gods. Some of them call her Sipari Mai, which means mother of Siparia. One thing I'm mentioning that yet. Right. Yep. So the next thing that we want to know is, when is it celebrated? I think you would have gotten to this in your homework. So some things are done for the statue for La Divina Pastora on Holy Thursday and Good Friday, which of course is Easter time. But the main celebration is on the second Sunday after Easter, which is the feast day of La Divina Pastora. So we want to know where. And I assume some of us, Siparia people in the class would be familiar. This might be your church. It is in the town of Siparia, from the La Divina Pastora RC Church. So just how we had Santa Rosa RC Church being dedicated to Santa Rosa, we have La Divina Pastora. Siparia is another place that has an Amerindian place name. It means the city of sand in one of the Amerindian languages. So we would have spoken about it briefly, but we're going to talk now about who celebrates this. Now this is where it gets really interesting. So the people who celebrate La Divina Pastora is more or less people from all different backgrounds, all different faiths. Now, it's not all Hindus, it's not all Warao people, all Muslims, but certain people. So we have Roman Catholics who see it as statue of the Virgin Mary. We have Hindus who see her as Sipari Kai Mai, or Mother Kali, or the Sipari Murti, as I said before. You have the Warao people, who are the indigenous people from Venezuela. They still exist there. They still live there in as they originally did. And they still come across to Trinidad and things like that. They've been around for many, 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 many years. So just how we had the Tainos and Calinagos, we have the Warao people in Venezuela. We have some Muslims as well who look to the statue. We have some spiritual Baptists and some people from the Orisha faith as well. We have different people from all different backgrounds who see the statue and say, you know what, there's something special about this statue. I think, whatever the case is, even though it's a Roman Catholic tradition, Roman Catholic statue, all of that. The Chinese are the only people who are not listed here, and it's just because they or even when the Chinese people first came to Trinidad, they also saw this statue and said, you know what, that looking like somebody we know. But a lot of the Chinese people ended up being Catholics anyway. And a lot of the people who go to La Divina Pastora to go and venerate the statue are mothers or pregnant women. So they will go and ask her, intercede through her for their children to grow strong and healthy, to have a good pregnancy, and some of them will pray for fertility as well. So now we've covered all the bases. The big topic, big question is how? How is this celebrated? So as I said, it's a particular feast day where they have the processions and everything. But before that, there's a group of women alone, see women holding an important role again, who will dress the statue. So they will give her new clothes, and it's I think a Latin American tradition where statues of virgin statues are dressed in wedding clothes, and she will get her new fancy kit, and these women will dress her up before in preparation for the festival. There's a very interesting story that some people tell about a young man who wanted to see what was underneath the statue's dress, and when he peeked, he was struck blind. He became blind. So that's one legend that exists about, the statue as well. So it's a select group of women who will get to dress her and prepare her before the festival. And there's a mass. Main part of it is a mass that they have at the church. And then after that, they take the statue, very similar to Santa Rosa, and carry it in a procession through Sicaria. At one point in time, a very long time ago, people from different religions actually used to come to the church with live animals to give as an offering. So you'd have like a chicken flying around the church and things like that. But they don't do that anymore. It's not allowed anymore, I think. So another interesting way that it's celebrated, some people will come and give offerings to the statue. They'll give rice, jewelry. You'll see a lot of gold jewelry, some flowers, candles, olive oil is considered to be sacred, and some of them even give money. So if you want to intercede, because they believe that the statue has powers, so they think if they put money there, they'll get a lot more. You have people coming to bless their oil, so they'll think that the oil that is associated with La Divina Pastora will be holy, magical oil. And there's, interestingly, in this picture, it's from a Hindu practice where they will cut the boy child's hair for the first time. There's a lot of superstitions around cutting children's hair. So you see people say that if you cut your child's hair before they learn how to speak, they'll never speak. So this Hindu practice, they believe that when they carry it out on this day at the church, it means that they'll grow up big and strong, and if they ain't learn to talk yet, they'll talk afterwards and things like that. So actually now, I don't think it's as common as before, but this picture is from the 1950s. That was really long ago. But now you have barbers who will come to the church and people will pay them to cut their hair, cut the little boy's hair at the church. And there's a lot of prayer almsgiving, which means giving to the needy and the hungry and the poor and the sick. So we're just going to go through some pictures. You'll notice that she looks different. The statue looks different all the time. That's because they're constantly, sprucing her up. She gets new clothes, things like that. They might give her a nice little coat of brown to make sure she's always brown, always dark brown, always a brown statue. And that's maybe why you have so many groups relating to her, because they say, hey, you know what, that looking like me, or that looks like, so yeah, I think this is how she dresses throughout the year in other colors, and then for the actual festival, she'll get her little wedding clothes. Very beautiful dark brown statue. Right, so we've covered two fantastic, really interesting festivals. Now for homework, I want you to state 5 differences and 5 similarities between the two. So you're gonna write, all right? Similarities, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Differences, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you'll say what is similar or what is different between these two festivals. Do your homework, write in your book. If you have any questions, look out for me. I'm also going to post this on Edmodo so you'll be able to see. But yeah, let's know any comments if you go to Santa Rosa RC Church sometimes, or if you go to La Divina Pastora, if you've ever been to the celebration, if you have First People blood in you, let's know. Let us know. So that's it for me for today. Please do my homework. Look out for your second assessment, which I will post eventually soon. Look out for it and enjoy the rest of your days. Don't forget to do my homework and don't forget to fill out the Google Forms so that I'll know you watched the class. Bye-bye.